Okay, so we always hear just be present. But what if being present feels impossible because of stuff you've never really dealt with from your past? That's what I'm diving into today. I'm talking about family dynamics and how I finally got to a place where I could talk about it without carrying the emotion. Let's get into it. Welcome back. And if you're new here, welcome. This is the Alyssa Noel Show. And I'm so excited that you are all joining me here today. It feels like so much has happened since I recorded last, but here we are. It's May, a new month, which is exciting. Spring is here in full swing. Not technically where I'm at because it's been pretty overcast by the coast here in California. May gray is a real thing, but hopefully the summer will be a bit nicer. So today, like I had mentioned, I really want to dive into more so navigating family dynamics, specifically for my situation being an adult child of alcoholic slash dysfunctional families. And even saying that out loud is something that is really difficult for me, as I have mentioned on many other episodes, because it feels like when you start talking about family stuff, you're breaking some unwritten rule or contract that you signed when you were born. Like, talking about family stuff is a big no-no. I can't be the only one that thinks this. So it's been challenging for me to get over I don't know if it's guilt, but to get to a place where I feel comfortable sharing it. And I really feel that that comfort has grown over time the more that I've healed some of the things that I will slowly be sharing with you all. I feel in the beginning I had so much, I don't want to say attachment, but I had a lot of emotions around a lot of feelings that I had as I was navigating and healing certain parts. And it is still a work in progress. I do not have all the answers. I'm just sharing my experience. I don't have a psychology degree. I'm not a licensed therapist or anything like that. I am a certified recovery coach, but I am just using this as sharing my experience. And I have some other books that have helped me as well that I want to share with you too, that have helped me navigate this in addition to therapy and all of that. I was really big into watching family sitcoms growing up. I loved TV Land. If any of you know or remember what that was all about. But some of those old shows like The Brady Bunch, I loved watching that. And when I was thinking about this episode, one family show in particular, Leave It to Beaver, came to mind, which I believe was set in like the 1950s. And it was like this perfect family, but the youngest son was always getting into trouble. And then there would be a resolution at the end of every episode. And that's kind of the same with all of these TV shows where someone gets in trouble, there's a lesson that's learned. The dad or the mom talks to the child about that and why that might not be right and how we can do better next time. And then it's all kumbaya. Well, what I was seeing in TV and what was happening in my household were two separate things and kind of polar opposites. And I don't want to, me sharing this isn't me trying to put shame on my family or put them in a negative light at all. This is just me sharing my experience and what I've learned on my healing journey. I love my family very much. I understand that my parents raised me the best they could with what they knew at the time. And I have been able to have conversations with them about different dynamics of our childhood, and we've both kind of grown together. So I just want to put that out there as I dive more into this, just because I know it is a topic, like I mentioned, that is hard to talk about because you kind of feel guilty. You feel like you're, I don't know, like I said, you feel like you're breaking some contract that you signed up for. But I honestly feel that not talking about it, it just kind of, I don't know, I just felt so alone. I mean, obviously, I had friends and different things that knew dynamics that were going on. But I feel like so many families that I knew growing up, they put on this facade like these TV shows of being the perfect family when no one really knows or knew what was going on behind closed doors. And it wasn't until I got older that I realized that more families have issues than not. And that is normal. And I don't even know I don't even like using that word normal because it's so subjective, um, but yeah, and especially since I started navigating my own sobriety journey, my own healing journey by going to therapy, that I was really able to recognize patterns and different things that I saw growing up and how those were trickled throughout relationships that I had, romantic relationships, relationships with bosses, and so on and so forth, which I really want to get into how work and family life for me. I realized so many parallels after I left a toxic work environment, but that's for another episode. But for the sake of today's episode, yeah, just it was so difficult for me. For instance, like I think one of the earliest memories that I have is it was during Christmas time, and if you've listened to some other episodes, I feel like, and I'm trying to figure out what this all means, so many different things have happened in my life around Christmas, and Christmas also is my birthday. And like happy memories, sad memories, what have you. So it was during Christmas time. I don't know to the extent of what was going on, but there was an argument between my family and one of my grandparents. And I remember crying to my mom or just screaming at everyone because everyone was screaming at each other, saying, for this Christmas, I don't care about presents. All I want is for everyone to get along. And as like a little first grader, to be able to recognize the conflict that was going on in my family, um, I mean, I carried that around for a long time. And that was just one example of conflict that I saw. And it's hard too because, like I mentioned in these TV shows, there was always a resolution at the end of every episode. In real life, there wasn't. Not for me, at least. It's like the next day, everyone swept everything under the rug and acted like everything was normal. Did they have a conversation that I wasn't aware of and a part of? Maybe. But it just feels for me if a child sees something going on where there's some sort of altercation, you would at least have a conversation with them about this is why this happened, yada, 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 and now everything's better. And so I think that it was really hard for me, and it has been really hard for me to resolve any conflict in my own life. And that's been something that I've been working on because you just kind of want to avoid it and then just laugh it off like I do and move on. But that doesn't help because, you're sweeping all these things under the rug. The rug's just going to be filled with a bunch of dust that one day is just going to poof. I don't know if that makes sense, but you get my drift. So specifically in my situation, yes, I believe that it was dysfunctional. I do believe that many families experience some degree of dysfunction. And then there was also the addiction aspect in my family, which I didn't know was as big of an issue while I was growing up than I do now and reflecting back on it. And you feel very lonely in navigating it, and at least I did. And in the beginning, I felt very angry. I was very angry at everyone in my family, and the same thoughts when I quit drinking. It was, why me? Why do I have to be the one? Realizing that potentially I'll never be able to have a conversation with certain family members regarding what I experienced growing up and what that was like, and being able to forgive and move forward without having that apology. That has been one of the most difficult things I feel I have had to navigate, is just knowing that I can forgive and let go without an apology, and that's okay. And the reason why I'm doing this work is so it stops with me. And if I have kids one day, that I know that I can do better with what I've learned. So, two books that really opened my eyes to me actually realizing, because these are professionals that wrote about it from a bunch of clients that they had, of me not feeling alone in these. The first book that I read was Adult Children of Immature Parents. And I share an Amazon account with my mom, and so I think I had to buy this at the bookstore because I didn't want anyone to know that I was like reading this, because you don't want people to take it personally, but you got to know and you got to work through it. So I highly recommend this book. It was my light read when I went to Mexico for my birthday a couple Christmases ago. It's funny, I've talked to friends about this, where I was not a big reader at all. Once I started my healing journey, I just became a bookworm. Love books, self-help books specifically. Just read self-help books. But I don't read any other books besides that, for fun. So it's every time I have a book to read, it's usually something heavy. And so sometimes I don't want to. Sometimes I've noticed myself slowing my roll on my reading because I'm like, man, this is, yes, I'm learning and growing, but it's it is fun for me, but you know what I mean. It's just, it's not a light read. It's working. You're working it. So one of the first exercises they had in this book, and I believe that there's a workbook that goes with it. I did not do the workbook. I read this book so long ago. But one of the exercises that they do have where you can write in it, and this book is by Lindsay Gibson. I believe I've mentioned this book in the past, and if you haven't heard of it, I'll be sure to link it in the show notes for you. But it asked to check mark if you felt if you felt any of the statements that were written describe one of your parents. And I forget how many it says. It would be oh yes, you have an emotionally immature parent, but I checkmarked all of them. And I wanted to share them with you, just in case some of this, to kind of better understand what I am talking about when I talk about emotionally immature parents, when I talk about being an adult child of alcoholics / dysfunctional families. These are the types of characteristics that I've seen, that I noticed in my childhood, and that affected me as an adult that I'm currently working through. So I thought that sharing this and then some of the characteristics in the other book might help, just to give you a background of what I am talking about here. So the first one, and it was both. It was either one or the other or both of my parents for all of these. So the first one, my parent often overreacted to relatively minor things. And it's just funny because some of these things I did and still do too. But we're learning and growing. My parent didn't express much empathy or emotional awareness. When it came to emotional closeness and feelings, my parent seemed uncomfortable and didn't go there. My parent was often irritated by individual differences or different points of view. When I was growing up, my parent used me as a confidant, but wasn't a confidant for me. My parent often said and did things without thinking about people's feelings. I didn't get much attention or sympathy from my parent, except maybe when I was really sick. My parent was inconsistent, sometimes wise, sometimes unreasonable. If I became upset, my parent either said something superficial and unhelpful, or got angry and sarcastic. Conversations mostly centered on my parents' interests. Even polite disagreement could make my parent very defensive. It was deflating to tell my parent about my success because it didn't seem to matter. Facts and logic were no match for my parents' opinions. My parent wasn't self-reflective and rarely looked at his or her role in the problem. My parent tended to be a black and white thinker and unreceptive to new ideas. So all of those, if you're like, ding, 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 won the jackpot, but not a good one. All these are potential signs of emotional immaturity. And it was really interesting because, like I had mentioned, as I've been doing my own work, I realized some of these characteristics may have been traits that I picked up along the way as well. So, in the beginning, it's like, it's easy to blame. I spoke about this when I stopped drinking too. Like, it would have been so easy for me just to blame my parents for not teaching me how to properly drink, or to, by setting a bad example, by drinking a lot in front of me, my grandparents too, other friends' parents. It was pretty much a culture, like, where I grew up. It just seemed like all the people that we hung out with drank similarly. So being around those environments, what I was able to watch on TV with reality TV show becoming a big thing, and some of those high school shows and movies that I watched at an early age that glorified binge drinking. There were so many different things that were going on at the same time that I think contributed to me wanting to drink in that way. And then it wasn't until later that I realized that I was using that to mask some things I didn't want to deal with. But same in regards to navigating this. It's so easy to be the victim and just blame everyone else. What's hard is actually recognizing your role in it. Not that you deserved to grow up in a household, whatever that household may be, but recognize maybe some of the characteristics that you have brought into your adult life, untangling those so you can move forward in the best way possible. And I do feel also me being able to talk about all this objectively without having emotions tied to them, because I still get sad and feel for my younger self, that inner child, about what she went through and how scary that must have been for her to navigate that. And, I have a little sister, and how I couldn't be there for her in certain ways because I was navigating my own thing. But I do believe that the EMDR therapy that I've done off and on for the past couple of years has really helped in this. And what EMDR is, and I might butcher this, again, I don't have producer Tyler in my ear, and I didn't write any of this down. So EMDR stands for eye movement desensitization reprocessing. I always butcher the desensitization reprocessing. And it can be done in different ways. I think like tapping, I do the eye movement thing. And you start with a target incident. So my target incident happened around a Christmas when I was in my early 20s. I swear, this Christmas theme, I might do an episode called Christmas in July, because I realized that I wrote out a half episode around the holidays and never published it. So yeah, Christmas and certain things, I don't want to call them milestones, but I don't really know what to call them. Key moments in my life that shaped how I perceive things, I guess, happened, or big life events happened around that Christmas time. But so that was the target incident. And since then, it was like, that's not even like the core of the onion. Like I always talk about healing is like peeling back the layer. It was just like the outer layer of the onion, I feel. And everything we've been working on is just kind of been peeling off another layer and another layer. But what you also, besides finding that target incident to kind of start with, you also, it's to reprocess self-limiting beliefs that you've had since a young child. And when I get into this other book, that'll make more sense. But two of the statements that came up from that is, I'm not worthy and I'm not important. And even in this emotionally immature parents book too, it said something about like what your parents were doing were more important than you. Everything was centered around them. They used you as a support system, but never were a support system to you. And the other book that I came across by chance, nothing's by chance. I came across when I was looking for another book is called just that, Adult Children of Alcoholics. And the author is Janet Geringer. I don't know how to pronounce that last name. Wattitz? I'm not sure. I apologize to Janet's family. I looked the author up because I definitely would have wanted her to come on this podcast. She's passed away. I think this book came out in the 80s, and it spoke to me so much. This was before I even opened the Adult Children of Alcoholics book and read the characteristics of that. So this was my first introduction to what an adult child might feel like. And I just felt like it was speaking to me. I had been feeling all these things for a very long time, but I could never put words to them until I read this book. And even on the back page, it says, "Are you an adult child of an alcoholic? Adult children of alcoholics guess at what normal behavior is. Adult children of alcoholics have difficulty following a project through from beginning to end." I definitely want to talk about that in a second. They lie when it should just be easy to tell the truth. They judge themselves without mercy. They have difficulty having fun. They take themselves very seriously, have a difficult time with intimate relationships, overreact to changes over which they have no control. That's another big one that I feel like I need to touch on. Constantly seek approval and affirmation. Check. Usually feel that they are different from other people, are super responsible or super irresponsible, are extremely loyal even in the face of evidence that loyalty is undeserved. That one I'm going to table for when I talk about work dynamics, because she came out with another book called Self-Sabotage in the Workplace. And I was like, did you write these books for me? Like, it was with the work that I was already doing and already coming, self-actualization, I don't know if that's the right word, self-awareness was some things I was becoming more aware of. But when I read, that's why I feel like everything just comes and happens at the perfect timing of your life. Like, I was ready to receive this. I was ready to receive that other book, which I'll touch more on in another episode, because of what I was already working on and working through in therapy. The last one was Adult Children of Alcoholics Are Impulsive. So I was just seeing what else for those that aren't watching, I have the book and I'm reading from it. I was just looking to see what I put my Post-it note. And the biggest one one of the big ones, I mean, not all of them, but a majority of them relate to what I experienced at some point. So I'm really curious if any of this has resonated with you. But one of the ones I wanted to touch on briefly, adult children of alcoholics have trouble following a project through from beginning to end. I have always been a procrastinator, and I had no idea like where that came from or why. And this and the description that she talks about with examples after after that like headline in the book. It just makes so much sense. I was always rushing to the last minute to finish things, and it was just, she mentioned something about like teaching a child to have a certain amount of time, like these hours to complete your homework and having like a structure. And yes, I did complete homework and turn it in, and it was looked great and all of that. But when it came to projects and different things, especially as I got older and started managing time on my own, I always put stuff off, and I never understood why until I read this book. And it also makes sense as to why this podcast has been so touch and go with me producing episodes, because yes, life is busy. Yes, I have other jobs that I I have other things I have a way to make money. But it made so much sense as to why I would put things off that actually brought me joy too. Um, the other one I wanted to touch on briefly is adult children of alcoholics overreact to changes over which they have no control. I would say that I was not flexible whatsoever when it came to plans changing last minute. I don't think I would ever show that in front of my friends, like the irritation, but with family and around Joe, I definitely would. And it was stuff that was out of all of our control. And it's very interesting because it's like, it says it right here in the book. Something changing last minute, it brings back all the plans that were never carried out, the promises that were never kept, and the punishment that you cannot relate to your crime. So it wasn't even about that event being changed or, cancel, like a plan canceling or something. It was about something that happened that triggered something deep in me from my childhood. That's why I love all this so much, because I've been on this journey for a very long time and have been doing the work. I did quotations if you're listening to this, just because I think some of the terminology is funny, but I don't know what else to call it, because that's what everyone calls it. I don't know if I really even like adult children of alcoholics, but if I come up with a better name, I'll let you all know. But it's just so interesting to me how everything is tied together and everything is related. And, people have posted stuff about how we're the biggest project we can ever work on. And I believe that to be true, because if you're doing the work on yourself, and if you're like that first generation that's doing it, you're untangling all this stuff that has probably been going on for generations and generations. And I don't know, it intrigues me. And so, and like I said too, for whatever reason, I don't feel that everyone needs to share everything that they've experienced growing up. It's not for everyone. There's just something in me that is guiding me to share my experience. And it is something that I have sat with and have felt very lonely in navigating, especially after I stopped drinking. And so I feel there's power in sharing with others and maybe building a community of where other people might be experiencing something similar. And I don't know, it just helps being able to talk about it, just being able to talk and share your feelings. And yeah, so I'm going to drop both these books in the show notes. I encourage you to maybe think about anything that I said, and if it resonates with you. I remember I had the biggest aha moments when I read both of those books. Everything made so much sense, and it was like a sense of comfort in knowing that I'm not alone. And they wrote these books with a lot of examples from people that they had worked with throughout the years. Okay, so what else has been going on? I can catch you up a little bit on what life has been like. I was back home last week. My My grandpa passed over the holidays, and I went back to the house for the first time since he passed, and I actually stayed there because it's empty right now while they're getting ready, I think, to put it on the market. And it was really emotional. And I felt like I was so hesitant to go because I didn't want to feel the emotions surrounding that and his death. And, it brings up stuff from the death of my grandma that happened 10 years prior to his. And it was actually a very beautiful experience being there. Yes, it was filled with some sadness, tears, but also brought back happy memories from my childhood. I've been doing so much work navigating the not so great times that I feel as if I've kind of forgotten about all the good times. And that to be said too, as I begin talking about this more, I did have a great childhood. There was just some things that weren't so great about it. And it was a time around Christmas that came back to me. This Christmas theme, I swear, I will get to the bottom of it. And my grandpa loved trains, and just remembering how my cousins and I would love to play with the train that he had set out and just watch it go around and around and around. And it's just so special. My grandparents loved hosting all of us grandkids for Christmas, and it was just so nice having that fun memory come back. But I feel like I also was able to attend one of the last sound baths at this studio that I would go to back in Redondo Beach. And I stumbled upon her place, Pure Sound Bath, when I was first living back in Redondo after I moved from Florida and left the news. And I had popped in there as much as I could over the years. And it was just so nice. Enjoying that sound meditation, and the owner said the sweetest words to me that meant so much. It's hard to recognize when you're in it how much you've grown over the years, and then for someone else to recognize it just means so much to me. So if you out there have been doing the work, just know that you are making change, and know that even if you're not where you want to be yet, you are, even just that knowledge of knowing, you are so many steps ahead than you were. And, it's not about the destination. It is about this journey that we are on. And the journey is never going to end until it's our last day here on earth, I feel. And it's such a beautiful thing knowing that in a society where everyone wants a quick fix, a pill to cure this, a cream to cure that, that's not how it works when you're truly trying to heal. And obviously life stuff happens, so things take longer. We can't all just dive into our past and try to navigate that. But it just feels like a lot of chapters are closing. And when chapters close and doors close, for me, for that sound bath studio, they're closing, new chapters opening. The selling of that home, my grandparents' home, where I spent a lot of my time growing up there, that no longer being in our family, is opening a new chapter for what? I'm not sure yet. So usually when doors close, it's making space for new opportunities. And I feel like that is really a theme of spring, is blooming for what's to come. And it's life. Life is just, I don't know what I was going to say after that. I kind of forgot where I was going with that. But just to kind of tie back into what I said in the beginning is, I don't feel like I truly understood what being present meant until I started navigating the background noise. In the background noise, I mean navigating past experiences in my life that I needed to heal. And they always say just be present, but it's really difficult when you have so much other things going on, and that within itself is a mindfulness practice. And that's why I love doing yoga so much, is because it is a class that is centered around being present in that moment. And I feel like with all the yoga practices I have taken over the years, I can't even tell you how many, it has constantly brought me back to the present moment. In addition to healing the past, it has helped me truly recognize what being present is. But you just can't, I just don't think you can just be present when you got a lot of stuff going on sometimes. I just have to say, if you've ever felt like you're the only one with a messy family story, same, but it doesn't have to stay like that forever. And you're on the path of breaking the cycle, and I'm here with you. My DMs are always open if you want someone to talk to about it. I've read a lot of books. I've done a lot of work on this. It's still a work in progress, like it always will be, but always happy to be a support to whoever I can. Like I said, thank you so much again for being here, and I will see you next time. Please like, subscribe, rate, review, all that fun stuff so other like-minded people can find us. And remember, wherever you go, there you are.